Well, the Great Lakes severe weather season is continuing, and this time it is targeting portions of lower Michigan and northern Indiana. And these storms will move through early Tuesday afternoon. The question is, how strong or severe are they going to get? In this video, we're going to talk about the limiting factors with this storm that's going to be making its way through, as well as who could see possible severe storms. 4 o'clock, right on the dot, and it is March 25th. Welcome to another update of Great Lakes weather. Hopefully everybody is doing well today. And again, I understand a lot of you are on spring break, as am I, which is kind of a nice chance to relax. Hopefully everybody gets a chance to enjoy that. I will be out on the roads tomorrow intercepting some of these thunderstorms. And the question is, how strong are these storms going to be? There's a major limiting factor with this system that could limit the storm development, and I think it's going to have a lot to do with the moisture and instability. But despite low moisture and instability, I still think there could be some strong storms given the fact that the wind shear is pretty high. It's very high, actually, and that's going to cause the development of even some showers that could produce some strong winds. So that's going to be something to watch out for as well. This is a shelf cloud I captured July 2nd of last year. Very impressive structure with this, despite the fact it was not very much a strong storm day. I don't think there were any severe warnings on this, but still pretty cool structure. I think we could see some structure like this tomorrow too, especially some of those low top supercells that develop kind of congeal into a cluster and form this shelf. So that'll be interesting to watch out for, but let's get right to it with the current setup that we have for severe weather across the Great Lakes region. So again, marginal risk for severe thunderstorms. This was just expanded by the SPC about an hour and a half or 2.5 hours ago, and you can see that it covers pretty much all of Indiana, western Ohio, southern lower Michigan, and then eastern Illinois is included in this as well. So it's pretty much a Great Lakes region storm setup, okay? Now the primary threats for this, I believe the primary threat here is going to be damaging winds, okay? Now it's already going to be really windy. Wind gusts are probably going to get up close to 50 miles per hour tomorrow as this system makes its way through. But some of those cells that do pop up will have the chance to strengthen some of those winds and maybe bring some damaging wind gusts associated with them. And not only that, there will be a lot of spin in the atmosphere as well, which is why there's also a tornado threat highlighted by the SPC. Now, the threat for strong tornadoes here, I don't think is going to be an issue. We're not going to be dealing with strong tornadoes again. It could happen, but I don't think it's going to. At the same time, damaging wind threat, it's going to be more primary with this compared to the tornado threat, I think, mainly because of the lack of instability that we will be dealing with in the atmosphere during the time this thing moves through. So that is what's highlighted by the SPC right now. Now, I would not be surprised to see this risk go to a slight risk, okay, because again, the models have hinted at a little bit of an increase in instability, so that's something to watch out for. That increased instability will further the threat for damaging winds especially, and then might increase that tornado threat just a little bit as well. So watching out for this setup. And let's get right to the models and get an idea of exactly what's going on. Again, the models are just showing you kind of an output based on current data as to what's going to happen. But again, it can give us a good idea of what we might be able to see come early Tuesday afternoon. So this is the HRRR model. Okay, we're looking at the composite reflectivity, and we're looking at a special map that shows the updraft velocity as well. That's greater than 75 meters squared per second squared. What that means is basically it shows that there is a storm packing a lot of spin. That could be possible with a few of those supercells that make their way through. So let's get right to it. We're going to fast forward to around I'd say this is 9 a.m. 9 a.m. you see a few little pockets popping up here and there, and you get a sounding out ahead of them. It does show that marginal severe potential. Storm relative velocity is close to 200 from the surface to the 3-kilometer level. But here's the issue right here. You can kind of see it right here. Cape values are low, 200. Not very strong Cape. I think that will probably increase by the time it reaches Michigan and Indiana, but you can still kind of see that Cape is not too great. Low tops, you can see the top of the cloud is really not going to be too high up there. And one thing about these storms is that they're going to be racing off to the northeast, probably at 50 miles an hour. So again, these storms will be difficult to keep up with, especially when I'm chasing them, but there will be multiple storms heading from southwest to northeast, so there will be multiple opportunities to intercept a few storms as they make their way through. Now, another thing to note is the hodographs. Hodographs are going to change a little bit, but I really think this is kind of what the look of the hodograph is going to look like. This hodograph supports more of a damaging wind threat, not necessarily a tornado threat. A better hodograph for a tornado threat would look something more along like this with the curvature, okay? And we do not really have that as strong of a directional shear as we would expect with a setup for tornadoes. You can see that it's mostly south to north, mainly more speed shear than directional shear that is associated with this. But as we go forward, you might see a little bit of a change in that. So here is around, I'd say 2 or 3 p.m. You can see that clusters of storms begin to fire across portions of Indiana, Michigan, and these storms will eventually make their way into Ohio. But if you get a sounding out ahead of one of these, let's go to Calhoun County near Athens region. Get a sounding there. You can see the marginal tornado potential there, and the curvature changes just a little bit. There's a little bit of directional shear out there, but really not a great setup for tornadoes. It's really showing more of that straight line wind threat. Again, hail threat is pretty much non-existent with these storms. Again, with the low top supercell that you will have, you can't really get much higher in the atmosphere, and the mid-level lapse rates are going to be pretty low. So you can see right down here, this represents your lapse rates. The surface level lapse rates are pretty high, around 8, but the mid-levels are going to be pretty low, around 6, and you won't really have that air cooling as quickly as it goes higher up into the atmosphere. So hail is not probably not going to be an issue with these, but you will have plenty of shear to work with these storms. Instability, as I said, does increase. You get instability of around 600. Okay, so as that instability increases, really a good thing with a high shear setup is 500 or more to foster severe thunderstorms. So that's kind of what we're watching out for, the low Cape high shear event. And then you can kind of see as these storms continue to move to the east around 3 or 4 p.m., they start to form into a line, possibly an MCS that could occur, make its way, or a QLCS could possibly form with these storms as well. And you can see that it starts to extend even farther down into portions of eastern Indiana and western Ohio. So again, severe weather setup is present for pretty much any area that is in the marginal risk area. Could see a sporadic damaging wind gust. I would say damaging winds are probably a more primary threat, but there could be a brief spin-up tornado as well that could do some damage. So that's what we're watching out for with this system. Let's take a look at some of the dynamics with this. Again, shear is no issue here. You've got a good amount of shear. This is at the lower levels. You've got 50 knots of wind. You got 50 knots of wind coming out of the south with the cyclone that's kind of focused up in this region here. You go up into the higher levels of the atmosphere too. You can see that you're still getting some nice southerlies, southwesterlies. Sorry, got a cough. But you also have very strong wind shear at the higher levels as well. So you've got a nice strong jet that's flowing in as well, which again I think is going to further assist in the moisture return after the initial rain early in the morning tomorrow moves through. So I think there's going to be a decent amount of moisture that these storms will still have to work with. Now again, how dry the air is going to be the big issue with this setup, and how much clearing that we get, because again, this model is starting to depict that there's going to be a bit more clearing in the atmosphere, so there's going to be a bit more time for the atmosphere to recover behind the rain that makes its way through initially. So that's something that we're going to be watching out for. But one thing also is that it's already going to be quite windy. Okay, so if you take a look at the wind gusts associated with these storms that will move through, you can see wind gusts are already close to 45, 50 miles per hour in some spots. So windy conditions already, plus some shear-driven storms that will likely further instigate some higher wind speeds that will move through portions of the Great Lakes region. So that is the kind of the thing that we are watching right now. And again, with the instability, your instability is pretty low. You see instability is only around 500 to 600. Some models are hinting at a bit of higher instability. Would not be surprised if we saw a little bit of higher instability, especially with that jet that's really fueling that moisture return into portions of the Great Lakes region. But you can see that the instability at surface level is low. Now 0 to 3 kilometer Cape is pretty high, which is definitely interesting to look at, because in order for the possibility of a spin-up tornado to occur, definitely good to have higher 3 Cape. So, and you see it really focuses itself across the Indiana-Michigan border. Now, again, tornadoes are not a primary threat, especially with you don't really have those super high top supercells. You don't really have as much of a structure at the middle level for these supercells to work with. So, but that low level cape is definitely benefits the development of stronger storms, especially since they can work right from the ground up. So that's something we're watching out for. Shear, again, very high shear associated with these storms making their way through. Spin in the atmosphere, storm relative velocity. You can see that there is plenty of spin present for these storms to work with. Updraft helicity, we want to go a little bit further after these storms move through. Shows the potential for updrafts to develop across portions of Michigan. Particularly Michigan is kind of the focused area, it appears, with regards to some of the updrafts that could form. And you can see that the updrafts don't look to be super strong with this. I really think updrafts won't really be as strong, especially since those supercells aren't really as deep into the atmosphere. But you can see that there is a little bit of weak potential there as well. We're going to back this up real quick. I do want to show you guys also the primary limiting factor is the moisture content. So getting a look at the dew points is something we want to take a note at. So dew points are going to be in the mid 50s, okay, which is still enough to instigate these storms. Now, if it gets any higher, we will have a better shot at seeing some stronger storm development, okay, if we get higher dews. But I think the dews will probably stick around the 50s, mid to upper 50s at this point. This setup kind of reminds me of February 7th. It was a low cape, high shear event once again down there as well, and we had a brief tornado associated with that also. So I'm kind of getting some vibes from that. But here's another model, the RFS. Kind of gives you a different idea of what's going to happen. It does put out a bit of a stronger scenario for storms. So as we get to 1 p.m., you can see storms are already firing across portions of Indiana and Michigan. And to be honest, despite the fact that the RFS is mainly an experimental model, it's doing a pretty good job with these setups. So it's not too far off with regards to some of the previous setups that we have had. But I want to get a look at the dynamics here because it does show a little bit more instability getting fueled up. So you can see instability gets close to around 800 to 900 in some spots, particularly across portions of the southern Michigan counties, which is likely where I'm going to start. I'm probably going to start either in Leonidas, Union City area, so the Branch County region is kind of my focus point, and then I'm just going to follow these storms east-northeast until they finally get over into Canada. So that's kind of the plan, but let's go back to the reflectivity with these so you can get a look at how these could evolve. Rewind. Alrighty, here we go. So back to 1 p.m. So you can see these storms are starting to fire across portions of Michigan. You get a sounding out towards north of Grand Rapids with these storms that are developing here. Marginal tornado potential. The hodograph does look a little bit better, but still not the greatest for tornadoes. Better directional shear associated with these. You can see that there's southeasterlies here, and you get some southerlies in the higher levels, then going up towards southerlies off to the north. Again, going to really drag in that moisture as well. SRH is better with these storms according to the RFS. And again, still showing those low mid-level lapse rates that really won't help give those supercells the higher tops. Then you see storms continue to develop and become more widespread across portions of Michigan according to the RFS. Get a sounding in Branch County, which is where I'm going to be. This is the sounding that interests me the most. You got cape values of around 1,000. You've got some good inflow into the storm. You've got good cape in the mixed layer and good 3 cape also present as well. This sounding is one of the better soundings I have seen from the latest models. So again, definitely a good hint at where I'm going to go. But I'm going to try to follow these storms east-northeast and see if we can get a decent, see if we can intercept these storms and the strong winds that they will likely hold. So that's really what's going on in the atmosphere tomorrow. After that, weather looking pretty quiet. I will say cooler for a couple days, but we'll be keeping an eye out on the next upcoming events. But I think April is going to be a pretty active season for severe weather. In Michigan is the question. And then also, one thing that I want to point out is the forecast for the solar eclipse. So let's do that real quick. We are starting to get into the longer range models that help to show what kind of cloud cover will be present for the solar eclipse that's going to be making its way through. So let's take a look at that real quick. Progress it forward to April 8th. Now, again, April 8th is kind of tough to forecast at this point. There have been some models that have shown clearing. There have been other models that have shown a lack of clearing. The newest models are starting to show clearer skies, which is a good sign for those who want to see the eclipse. And especially my target area is going to be Western Ohio for the eclipse, so that's kind of where I want to go and see this. But it's looking better based on the latest long-range models, but that's probably going to change up to the point, so just keep that in mind. But I'm getting excited about the solar eclipse. I know everyone else is. It's not too far away. It is now pretty much exactly 2 weeks away, so something to look forward to. But make sure to subscribe and stay updated. We'll keep you updated on that as well as the upcoming severe weather events. I will be chasing tomorrow, probably starting around noon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It will be on YouTube, Facebook, and then also it will be on Rumble. That's kind of a new thing that's starting up with this. So thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe tomorrow. Make sure to have a way to receive warnings, and I will see you all later.